Morning and a warm welcome to all of you. And today, as you all know, like October is a breast cancer awareness month, and that because of that, actually, we have chosen this topic, and we have actually requested our faculty members to join and share their experience on breast cancer. With the different modality. So the best thing is, at One Learning platform, this is first time like we have a faculty members other than from ultrasound modality as well. So it's a great pleasure and a great opportunity for all of us. Like today we have a great faculty with us who has experience, who has given their dedicated time on women's health segment. And with this, I would like to introduce our faculty member first, and then we'll followed up with the sessions. So we have today like Dr. Manju Virmani. She is a consultant radiologist at Handa Imaging, and she is having 25 plus years experience in ultrasound field. And her specialized area is breast and gynae ultrasound. And she is also one of the faculty member for One Learning platform as well. And she has actually given a lot of a complete course on breast and gynae, a complete year course at One Learning platform. We also have Dr. Poonam Bajaj. She is a director and senior consultant radiologist at the Ultrasound Center at Gurgaon. She is also having a lot of experience, more than 20 plus years experience, and her specialized area is in women's health segment and fetal medicine. And ma'am has also given a lot of time towards doing the breast imaging work. So definitely she has gained a lot of experience in that area. Dr. Shilpa Lad is again with us today, and ma'am is a specialty head and breast imaging at ICRI and IRIA, and a consultant breast imaging and intervention NM Medical Mumbai. She has also gained a 20 plus year experience, and her specialized area is breast imaging. So she use almost all the modalities, but she has mainly focused on the breast imaging. So again, it's a great opportunity for us today to learn a lot of things about the breast imaging. Then we have Dr. Veenu Vargisu with us. She is a chief radiologist at Orchid Breast Specialty Clinic, Prashanti Cancer Mission, Pune. And also, she is a senior consultant breast imaging at Jahangir Hospital, Pune. She is also having a huge experience in the women's, especially in the breast imaging area. And she has gained 20 plus year experience in this area, and her specialized area, as I said, is on breast imaging. So she has also done a lot of work, on the breast imaging, side. So with this, I would like to welcome all our faculty at One Learning platform today, and I hope for all the audience you are going to enjoy the 2 hours with different sort of modality and the approaches. So that's why we have actually come up with a topic like radiological approach towards breast cancer. So we all know early detection is a key, and we have today our experts with us. So let's learn from them and understand how tips and tricks on the breast imaging, and then again to detect the breast cancer. So with this, I would like to request Dr. Manju to start the session and take it forward.
Mr. Khushbu, I'd really like to thank you, Ankur and Vasu, for organizing this session. And I would also like to thank the faculty, Dr. Poonam, Dr. Veenu, and Dr. Shilpa for agreeing to appear with us in this session on breast imaging. We all know that October is the Breast Cancer Awareness Month, marked in countries across the world to increase attention and support for the awareness, early detection and management of breast cancer. And we all know that breast cancer is the commonest cancer in women worldwide, whether it's in developed or developing countries. In low and middle income countries, the incidence is rising steadily because of increase in life expectancy, increasing urbanization, and adoption of Western lifestyles. The mortality is higher in low and middle income countries because most women, when they present for breast cancer, already in late stage. And that is only because of lack of awareness and early detection. So, what I would like to do is to emphasize on improving our health program so that we can start screening more women, because that's the commonest cancer. It accounts for almost 18% of all women breast cancer. And it's the single most commonest cause of death among women between 40 to 50. The aim of any prime imaging modality is to reduce mortality from breast cancer through early detection. And it's very important to save someone's life. And this is being achieved with implementation of breast cancer screening. We all know we cannot prevent breast cancer, but we can detect it early. Screening refers to an examination used in asymptomatic women. Early detection is to diagnose before clinically evident cancer, which is small and is confined only to the breast. As we can see here on a mammogram, we picked up this just simple architectural distortion. This was a routine screening mammogram. And then with adding more this thing to the ultrasound and 3D, we are able to see a complete classic retractile pattern. And so we picked this lesion up very early. And so this helps in reducing the mortality, increases therapeutic options available, and decreases the physical and psychological trauma of mastectomy. As this woman, she was very young, and obviously to her, she only had to lose a little bit of breast tissue, and she was treated, and she's doing very well. The reduction in breast cancer is achieved, it's almost 30% reduction is achieved with screening. American Cancer Screening recommendations for women at average risk of breast cancer. These are the women, those who are considered average risk are those who don't have any personal history of breast cancer, who do not have a family history of breast cancer, they don't have any mutation factor of BRCA1 or 2, and there's no history of chest radiation therapy before the age of 30 years. European guidelines recommend 2-year screening for women between ages 50 and 70, whereas American Cancer Society recommends between 40 to 44 years. I mean, they recommend starting their baseline scan between 40 to 44 years. Between 45 to 55, they recommend yearly mammograms. 55 and older, they can either go back to once in 2 years, or they can still continue with 1 year. Screening should continue as long as a woman is in good health and can still live longer for more than 10 years. Those women who are at high risk group, they need a yearly breast MR and a mammogram, and that can start at the age of 30 years. As we can see here, this patient was a high risk patient, family history of breast cancer, and those with a family history of breast cancer, they are at a high risk of almost 20 to 25% more risk factor. Then those patients who have a genetic positive BRCA1 and 2 have a first degree relative with this positive gene mutation, but they have not tested themselves. They've had radiation therapy between the ages of 10 and 30 years, and they have one of these syndromes. So those are the patients which are high risk and need either a mammogram and a breast MR. And this patient had a high risk category, and we did this and we followed her up later to continue seeing how she's doing. We have already said the major risk factor is for being a woman and increasing risk for breast cancer. Inherited genetic susceptibility, family history of breast cancer, and it has been seen that when there's a first degree relative with breast cancer, the incidence is 2 times higher. Personal history jumps to about 4 to 5 times. And these women have to be followed routinely. The 1 and 2 mutation factor high, the risk factor jumps up. Breast exposure to high radiation during breast development, between 10 to 30 years. Again, if there's a history for Hodgkin's, between 20 and 30 is higher, and less than 20 is even higher. The early things could be early menarche, late menopause, nulliparous. And these are potentially modifiable factors: obesity, postmenopausal hormone therapy, physical inactivity, and alcohol consumption. Now, earlier they used to talk about breast self-exam and clinical breast examination, but ACL, American Cancer Society, does not recommend this evaluation anymore, whether it's for an average or a high risk group. Mammogram is the first and only federally regulated imaging examination to be an essential part of any early screening and diagnosis program. A screening mammogram is performed in an asymptomatic woman It's easily available, it's inexpensive and non-invasive. And it has been seen by doing a screening mammogram, the size of a lesion which can be picked up is anywhere between 1 and 1.5 centimeter, whereas on clinical exam it has to be more than 2.5 centimeter. We can also pick up nodes, and there are certain features which we look for to classify them as malignant, positive or negative, and that's possible too. There was a study done which came out in AGR October, which said comparison always improves the mammography outcome. And actually, I would really recommend people to keep their mammograms so as we can compare. And because by comparison, we increase the detection and we pick up early breast cancers, and there's a significant reduction in the recall rate. Now, diagnostic mammogram is like when a woman has some symptoms. She already has a palpable lump or she has some sort of a disease. As we can see here, two different women, they both came with palpable lumps. So one of the things which we want to do is that we detect this lesion and we want to make sure whether it's benign or malignant. As in this particular patient, she had actually just architectural distortion, which is very nicely seen on the magnified image. And ultrasound showed a retractile pattern, so we were able to diagnose an early cancer. We were able to say that it's malignant. Then in a clinically suspicious breast cancer, now here there's a patient who presented with a lump. Now the reason to do the mammogram is, one, we look for the other focal lesions. Here we could see a satellite lesion. Then we also want to make sure the other breast doesn't have anything. And here was one such patient who actually presented for the lump on the left side and nothing on the right. She could feel. So when we did the mammogram, she had a lesion on both sides. We followed it up with breast ultrasound, and this was both the lesions were malignant, and she could have been taken straight for surgery instead of undergoing a biopsy or to confirm. Digital tomograph breast tomosynthesis is an imaging technique that allows a volumetric reconstruction of the whole breast. This screening results in improved early breast cancer detection, especially smaller cancers. The callback rate is lesser, greater likelihood of picking up multiple breast tumors, fewer unnecessary biopsies, and there are clearer images, especially in dense breast tissue. The radiation dose is slightly higher, but this is more expensive and not as widely available. Ultrasound is actually an indispensable tool, and with my mammograms, I think I almost do all my patients, all the women who come to us for mammogram get an ultrasound at the same time. In 1970, the breast ultrasound was only to see between a cystic and a complex lesion or a solid mass. And so people lost interest on it. But now with increasing resolution and improving quality of ultrasound imaging, the interest has come back again because we are able to look at the solid lesion and classify into benign and malignant lesions. It's extensively used in interventional procedures, and the research is going on to use it as a screening modality. Breast elastography is based on the pathological process which alters the elastic properties of the involved tissue. In combination with ultrasound, it improves the specificity, and it's been confirmed its usefulness in small nodules and complex cysts. This may actually reduce the lesions which we classify as BI-RADS3 for biopsies. MR, I've always said, is a problem-solving modality and is actually a supplemental tool and not a replacement for mammography. It's useful in people who want breast conservation surgeries because once there are multiple tumors, they can be located easily, and especially the lesions which are near the chest wall. And to distinguish between recurrent tumors in scar tissue, as in this particular patient, she had surgery, she was lost to follow-up, she comes back again with this pretty bad-looking retraction and asymmetric density, and ultrasound was showing a classic pattern. But still, we cannot say is it scar tissue or is it cancer, so we had to go to MR, and I think that it played a big important role. So now moving on to my topic, which is mammogram. Just for simple breast anatomy, on the mammogram, we can pick up this pre-mammary zone, which is this thin layers of which is radiolucent just beneath the skin, and that shows fat, Cooper's ligaments, and blood vessels, and we can see the ducts in the nipple area. Cooper's ligaments are these thin linear strands which support the breast. Mammary zone is mainly of the fibroglandular tissue and is generally denser, and then there's a retromammary zone which is fat. The duct system is visualized near the nipple. There is a lot of tissue variation of the fibroglandular tissue because that gives the increased density in the breast tissue, and this is generally denser in the younger age group. And this tissue can be homogeneously dense or it may be inhomogeneous dense, as we can see in this breast valuation. The glandular parenchyma is estrogen dependent. So in postmenopausal women or those women who've had multiple children and have breastfed, the glandular tissue gets replaced with fat, and there's a nice fatty replaced breast. This was a postmenopausal woman. And this tissue increases, actually becomes very dense during pregnancy and lactation. Also, the other normal variance which we see, which is the commonest one, is the size. As we can see, her right breast is much smaller than the left one. And axillary breast tissue, here we have accessory breast tissue in the axilla. Here it's basically more fat, but here we are also looking at the glandular tissue developing the axilla. So when we have to look at these areas to look for any tumors developing there. Also, we look for accessory nipples and inverted nipples. Now, when we do a mammogram, we are doing mediolateral and craniocaudal views, and then this can be divided into 4 quadrants by drawing a line from the nipple. And there's this upper outer, upper inner, lower outer, and lower inner quadrants, as we can see in this diagrammatic display. It's very important to localize the lesion according to the American Cancer Guidelines. We have to look at whether it's right or left breast, whether we look at the anterior, middle, or posterior. As we can see in this particular patient, it's a right upper quadrant lesion. It's at 11 o'clock position. We have these clock where we can go down and trace where exactly it is. It is in the anterior 1/3, and the distance from the nipple can be calculated. Similarly, we can do for these 2 benign factors, which is relatively in the second, say 2 o'clock position and involving the posterior and anterior third. And the distance from the nipple can be calculated. Now, this is a mammography lexicon, and this is actually important, and it's pretty similar to ultrasound. And it looks like a very complicated slide, but when we go through it, we'll see how easy it is. Breast composition is subjective assessment of breast density. Now, this is pretty nicely fatty replaced. This particular pattern, when we call it grade A. It's highly sensitive, picking up breast cancers. This has a scattered areas of fibroglandular density, grade B. Grade C is when it's heterogeneously dense, involving all 4 quadrants of the breast. And these are the places where we can miss small masses. And this is an extremely dense breast, and these 2 patterns are where our sensitivity of the mammogram goes down. When we are looking at a mass is anything which is a space occupying lesion which can be seen in 2 different projections. As we have 2 different patients, craniocaudal views and mediolateral, and actually we can see the masses in both the cases. Anything which is seen only in one view is not considered a mass, is considered an asymmetry. When we are looking at the mass, we define it according to the shape. They can be round, they can be oval, they could be irregular, as we can see here, this particular one. This is another irregular mass. These both have a higher probability of being malignant. We can look at, lobular word is not used in the present protocol. Round, if they're just gentle 2 or 3 lobulation, this is being termed as round. It has been incorporated into round. And if they're more than 3 lobulation, they are considered as irregular. And the irregular masses have a higher sensitivity to higher probability of being malignant. Margins could be well circumscribed. They could be partially obscured. That's because of the overlying fibroglandular tissue. They could have a microlobulated appearance, which is suspicious. Then they could be irregular. They could have spiculated margins. These are very highly suspicious for malignancy. We look at the density of the mass in relation to the fibroglandular tissue adjacent to it. Here we see a nice radiolucent focus. This is seen in cases of lipoma. This is an isodense focus, and this is a high density focus, again has a higher association with malignant lesions. Now, calcification typically which are benign are these classic popcorn type of calcification. They may be solitary, they may be multiple. They may be associated with a mass, as in this particular patient. None of these ones were associated with any mass lesion. They may present as round or punctate. They may be showing peripheral rim of calcifications. They may be seen as large rod-like calcification. These are intraductal calcifications, vascular calcification, skin calcifications. But here, what I would like to say, sometimes women use the deodorants and that gives these calcifications. I generally call these patients back after telling them what to do and redo the scan. These are dystrophic calcifications in scar tissue. This calcifications which are suspicious, we have to look at the morphology. They are generally amorphous, they may be in clusters, they are irregular, they may be number more than 5, fine, pleomorphic, heterogeneous, small, less than 5 millimeters, irregular. This is the pretty irregular one which are associated with the mass. There are 2 lesions and both of them are suspicious calcifications. These are linear calcifications. And so these are the ones where there was no mass associated. These calcifications had mass associated with them. Then distribution of calcification is another important factor, whether they're diffusely distributed, as in these 2 patients we can see, or they're occupying a part of breast tissue which is more than 2 centimeters. Or there's a group of more than 5 calcification within 1 centimeter or larger number within 2 centimeter, and they're cluster calcification. Actually, nowadays we use the word group calcification instead of clusters. Then there are linear deposits in ducts, and these are dystrophic calcifications which were seen in the scar tissue. There are these associated features which are important to characterize these massive calcifications and asymmetries, which are seen as thickened trabecular pattern. All 3 different patients showing very thick trabecula associated with it. There's thin skin thickening, there's skin retraction, there's nipple retraction, the axillary adenopathy, and these associated features play an important role because we can classify the lesion from BI-RADS 4 to 5. Architectural distortion is nothing, but there's a single point from where the radiations are pointing out. Or the architectural distortion may be associated with a mass lesion like this. We can see these PQs coming out. Or when it's classic malignancy, it's completely distorting the breast tissue. Asymmetry, we've already said, are generally seen in one view. And then we see also what we see is that there's a concave border which is seen between the fat. Whereas if it's a mass, it generally has a convex border and it's denser in the center than the periphery. Any developing asymmetry is very suspicious when we compare it to the previous examination, and these need to be biopsied for cancers. The risk of malignancy when we see asymmetry is about 13%, but when there's a persistent asymmetry, it goes up to about 27%. These are the findings which are pretty typical. The intramammary nodes, which actually don't need any description. There are axillary lymph nodes, and the skin warts, which we don't need any description. So just to see what we did, typically malignant lesions have spiculated masses, they're irregular, they're high densities, they have calcifications, and they have associated features, skin retraction and thickening and nipple retraction. Now, and then these are benign masses. The ultrasound confirmed that these were cysts, these were dense coarse calcifications. Now, we've gone through this thing, but what we need as a radiologist is to refer all this in a final assessment with final recommendations for the physician to see what is going on. And that's where this American College of Radiology, which has developed this BI-RADS lexicon, is an important thing, which is similar to when we are reporting mammography, ultrasound, or MR. And the goals are basically standardized breast imaging terminology, report organization, risk assessment structure, and classification system. And this is what we are going to go through in our next this thing, to see how can we characterize a lesion, and then what is the prediction which we can give. Now, when we do BI-RADS 0, we are seeing this asymmetric density. This patient is for routine screening mammogram. This is a magnified view. It still tells us that there is some asymmetry. So this person needs either further evaluation by doing more mammographic imaging. We can do an ultrasound or MR. And because we have ultrasound at the same time, so we did ultrasound in this particular patient. It didn't show us anything. I did recommend her for MR because of her past history. Because there were no prior examination for comparison, which is also very helpful. So this patient was labeled as BI-RADS 0 and needed more information. And the final assessment is assigned when other imaging studies are completed. This was another screening mammogram where we pick up this small focus in the retroareolar region, and this needed additional imaging because she had history of nipple discharge. Another patient for screening mammogram actually just shows this focal area, can't really say what's happening. We do the ultrasound and one of these focal areas, which it looks like a pretty benign lesion and shows a tiny calcification, and this was labeled from BI-RADS 0, which changed it to BI-RADS 2. Another patient with very, very dense parenchyma. The history was that her breast felt very hard on the right side. Very recent history. She didn't give me any past history of anything. She gave that she has pain and swelling. For very recent history she had. So we did the mammogram, and if we didn't do the ultrasound, we could not have changed her category from BI-RADS 0 to BI-RADS 5. She had a classic irregular looking mass with an marked increased vascularity and showed a lot of tissue retraction on the ultrasound. And this turned out to be positive for cancer. BI-RADS 1 is these are two different patients, and these are images of one patient, and these are the 4 images of the second one. We are actually not picking up anything. It shows a nice fatty replacement, some residual fibroglandular tissue. This shows a pattern of grade C, but still we are not picking up anything. We did a ultrasound, nothing picked up, so we classified this person, both these mammograms, into BI-RADS 1. This is generally negative. They just need a routine screening follow-up, yearly follow-up. And likelihood of cancer in these patients is less than 0, is about 0%. Then coming to BI-RADS 2, this patients, now here are different examples. Here's this patient who has a mass with calcifications, pretty much clean, bilateral, so obviously benignity risk is much higher. Here's another one with the same mass with calcification, just solitary calcification. These are all involuting calcified fibroadenomas, classified as BI-RADS 2. This was another mass, very nicely outlined, did a ultrasound, and again picks up a fibroadenoma. These are all for benign lesions, and they're BI-RADS 2. Routine follow-up needed in these patients. Now, this was another patient who showed this well-defined mass, and another one which looked suspicious. Did the ultrasound, pretty classic cystic, but she was labeled as BI-RADS 2. She didn't believe us. She went in and she got it aspirated, both of them, and she comes back again with the multiple cysts again, which had formed. This is another patient who had BI-RADS dense ACR with a pattern of D, had multiple cysts on the ultrasound, so she was characterized as BI-RADS 2. The other BI-RADS 2 lesions are these rod-like calcifications, which are intraductal calcifications seen in cystic mastitis, vascular calcification, fat-containing lesions, which are lipomas. Now, this patient came with a very recent history of trauma, shows this ill-defined focus, actually a pretty nice-looking isodense focus, and the ultrasound shows a hematoma. And she was advised surgical drainage. Also, it's useful in looking at the breast anterior to the implants. In this particular patient, the breast tissue was pretty much normal. I always do an ultrasound on these patients because we sometimes do miss cysts in these superficial tissues. The BI-RADS 3 category are probably benign lesions. The likelihood of cancers is anywhere between 0 to 2%. And these are the patients where short interval follow-up is recommended. This is because as a radiologist, we prefer to establish the stability of these lesions. Now, two different mammograms, obviously well-defined foci. There are multiple well-circumscribed foci, some of them with calcification, and the differential diagnosis is cysts and fibroadenomas. Here we do the ultrasound. It's a complex focus, and this was very classically looking mass with posterior acoustic calcification with acoustic shadowing and an irregular looking mass. But because there are multiple, probability of them being benign is very high. This was another focus with these calcifications. And these were all labeled as BI-RADS 3 because the risk cancer, even though is less than 2%, I would like to follow them up and make sure in a follow-up in 6 months that there's no interval change. Actually, this one I only wanted to follow up because one of our masses showed a lot of increased vascularity. And a short interval follow-up is suggested in these patients. Then these are both post-op patients, post-irradiation. There are these dense calcifications. And in these patients, again, a follow-up is recommended. Any change, any increase in number, these are changed from category BI-RADS 3 to 4 and biopsy is indicated. This patient, I think I've already shown that there is this mass here. And when we do the ultrasound, actually it was difficult because this focus was right underneath the nipple, and she had history of nipple discharge, bloody discharge. So I had to actually hold the nipple and then scan her. And this was a retractile lesion which we could put just beneath the nipple. And this turned out to be malignant intraductal papilloma. There's a follow-up protocol which we like to follow for all BI-RADS lesion. Follow-up unilateral mammogram in 6 months. If no change and stable, we can follow it up for another at 12 months. No change, a yearly follow-up, and we can change the category from BI-RADS 3 to 2. Sometimes we follow them up 6, 12, and 24. When no change, it's a stable lesion, then we do a yearly mammogram. But some people do recommend to just continue it a yearly and no need of biopsy, as in this particular patient. She's young, she had this focus, she wanted to get it out, but she's followed her as, she didn't want to get it out. So we followed her up to 2 years, and then she just comes for a routine evaluation. Radiologist, their opinion is they want to say it's a benign lesion, but when the patient or the clinician wants to biopsy, then one can add in the report that follow-up tissue diagnosis is only performed because of the referring clinician's concern and the patient. Any change in the lesion during these follow-ups is suspicious, and the category can be changed from 3 to 4 or 5. BI-RADS 4 are where we need tissue diagnosis. These are suspicious lesions, even though they have a probability of cancer which can vary anywhere from 2% to almost going up to 95%. So BI-RADS 4A are the ones which have a lower probability, but look at these mammograms. Both of them are showing high density masses, but they're not that clean looking on the mammograms. We do the ultrasound. This has a pretty irregular looking contour, and this had a very complex looking texture. They did have a tissue biopsy to confirm what was going on. These are two different patients. This is a magnified view of this mass, and this is a magnified view of these two. Now these are again irregular looking masses. If we see here, we pick up spiculations, and we also pick up a wide zone of radiolucent edema around them. We do ultrasound, and again, it's not that classic on this 2D image, and this was a 3D image on this particular patient. Does show some retraction, and these were biopsied, and they were classified as 4B, and both of them turned out to be malignant. Now, whenever there's a breast which looks dense, there's a lesion which is seen here out the side, and here there's a lobulated mass which has a differential density. So the risk of malignancy in these patients was anywhere between 10 to 50%. We do a breast mammo, and we change this particular category from 4B to 4C, because just look at this. It's just a high resolution where we pass the C-plane through the region of interest, and it's a pretty nice looking hypoechoic retractile lesion, classic for malignancy. And this was another one where it's a complex texture, but there is a solid echogenic mass. So I didn't get a feedback on this, but I had recommended a biopsy to do it from this particular echogenic focus. BI-RADS 3 lesions are those which have a higher probability. We can see these two patients with ill-defined masses, and these were actually both in screening mammograms. This one actually felt some hardness, but this particular patient didn't feel anything, and one of the reasons could have been because she had large breasts. Then these calcifications again have a very high association with the cancer, which may be anywhere between 50 to 95%, and we do recommend biopsy or taking them out. BI-RADS 5 category is where we are pretty much sure the likelihood of cancer is more than 95%, and that is where we say an appropriate action should be taken. The current rationale for using category 5 is that if percutaneous tissue diagnosis is non-malignant, this automatically should be considered as discordant, because I have had one patient who actually came and argued with me. She went for biopsy, and the son argued that you said it's cancer. It was classic malignancy. So I had to explain his wife, who understood that, okay, the needle could have been higher up or below. And then I think they went back for a rebiopsy. I had to do the mammogram again on this lady to confirm that because he just refused to believe. So I did the other view, I did it once again, and I showed that this is the same patient, same lesion, and this needs to be taken out. Then we know all these BI-RADS 5 lesions, we know they're speculated, irregular, high density masses, they have these calcifications, as these particular patient here, calcification. I don't know, I have a hard time showing these calcifications, but these one, you have to believe me when I say that these are multiple tiny calcifications which I've seen. And this were the associated features which we can see in these patients also, where we can see nipple retraction, skin thickening. And now BI-RADS 6 are those women who already have a proven biopsy, and they are managed before surgical excision. They are treated with radiation, etc. So they know that they have cancer. As this particular patient who was given radiation to shrink the mass, and this was her lesion on the ultrasound. These were two different patients who actually had scar carcinomas. This one was lost to follow-up. She was told she doesn't need anything. This patient used to come for regular checkups, but in a 2-year interval, she had developed these dystrophic calcification, and this turned out to be malignant too. Now, just one thing which I would like to add is standard reporting. Now, we've done all this. We have to report it properly. And the one way to do is to, again, follow the ACR guidelines. We have to say what mammogram we are using, what views we are doing. Are we comparing with the earlier mammograms? What is the indication? Is it a screening modality? Is it screening mammogram, or is it diagnostic for some clinical finding? And also then if there are any skin lesions, if there are scars or palpable masses, we should give these diagrams which we give it to our staff when they do mammograms. Because I do ultrasound, so I see it for myself, but wherever those big departments, there these can be given where they can mark, so that when the radiologist is either taking for ultrasound, knows actually what is happening. Now, then we can go to the category. We have to give the breast composition, whether it's entirely fat, whether it's a fibroglandular tissue, heterogeneous or diffusely dense, because the probability of cancers in these two go down. Then when we describe a mass, we've already been through it, whether it's in the upper outer quadrant, irregular margin, trabecular thickening, skin thickening, nipple retraction, and calcifications, their morphology and distribution. This is actually one interesting patient, which I would like to say a dense mammogram does not mean that we don't look at it. This patient, if you look at it, it's an asymmetric tissue density, which we are seeing here, as compared to on the other side. And ML actually didn't show ML view, and this was a deep lesion on an ultrasound. It very classically showed a hypoechoic irregular lesion. And then the appropriate action can be taken on this. This patient had this lobulated mass, and the differential is phalloides or giant fibroadenoma, and this turned out to be a giant fibroadenoma. BI-RADS 3, we know that there's a risk of malignancy is less than 2%. We can follow them up. These are BI-RADS 2. Their probability of malignancy is less than 0%. And this is BI-RADS 1, which doesn't need anything but a routine yearly follow-up. Now, with this, I would leave it for Poonam to discuss. This is one such patient, extremely dense breast tissue. She was an infertile. She had taken medication for IVF conception and showed a very, very dense tissue. And this was her breast tissue, which showed irregular looking areas, speculations, and ultrasound was very classic for malignancy. And I would like to give it to Poonam to discuss how we can diagnose these lesions on an ultrasound into benign and malignant. Thank you so much for your kind attention.